Hi, and welcome to Reed's Audio Reading. I'm Reed, and I hope you enjoy my channel. Today I'll be reading The Adventure The Standing Stone, 3rd edition, specifically the introduction. This adventure was written by John D. Radcliffe. Introduction. In this decayed hole among the mountains, in the faint moonlight the grass is singing, over tumbled graves about the chapel. There is the empty chapel, only the wind's home. It has no windows, and the doors swing. Dry bones can harm no one. T.S. Eliot, What the Thunder Said. In The Standing Stone, player characters who are called upon to rescue a small woodland community from a ghostly horseman and vengeful elves discover that a real danger comes from the villagers themselves and their dark master's sinister plot. Encounter levels. The Standing Stone is designed for a party of 4 7th level D&D characters who should advance through 8th level by mid-adventure to the cusp of 9th level at the end. Since they will face very dangerous foes, dungeon masters with inexperienced or small groups may wish to modify some encounters to give PCs a better chance of survival. Preparation. As Dungeon Master, you need a copy of the three core D&D rulebooks to use this adventure: the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. In the adventure itself, the shaded boxes provide player information for you to paraphrase or read aloud when appropriate. Sidebars contain important information for you, including special instructions. Information on non-player characters appears in abbreviation form in any scene in which the PCs meet them. Adventure background. Centuries ago, Druids gathered from across the land to build a double stone circle deep in an ancient forest. Consecrated as a holy site, it provided a sacred place immune to scrying by outsiders, wherein they could hold their most important yearly rituals. Long afterwards, but still long ago, the area was the site of two great battles in which Seithnar, the warlord, defeated invading armies but perished as a result of the second battle. The massive barrow raised in his honor is still a local landmark, standing a few miles northwest of the stone circles. Then came the disaster that devastated and depopulated the area. The great dragon, Ashaldalon, for reasons no longer remembered, attacked the site, destroying the druid community and leaving a large part of the forest to the north of the circles a burnt waste. The sole surviving druid, Died the Wise, transformed some of the forest animals into humanid form to aid her in the resettlement and restoration of the region. In case history ever repeated itself, she had the requisite spells carved in the stones of the circles themselves, lest the necessary knowledge be lost. Most of the Dryad's people chose to retain human form, intermarrying with true humans and leaving behind descendants who have populated much of the region. In the quiet centuries since, most of these events have been forgotten or have passed into folklore. A small village grew up within the circles, concerned only with their yearly harvests. Recently, however, a tiefling sorcerer named Dyson learned of the spells inscribed on the stones and decided to use them in a long-term plan he had. Creating a servitor race that looked human gave him the perfect tools to use in infiltrating society in preparations for a fiendish invasion by his demonic allies. In company with a rock bard, his liaisons with the fiends, a druid priestess who provided access to the spells carved on the stones, and a cat familiar which he soon transformed into a companion and bodyguard. He settled in the little village and soon took it over completely. Within a year, he had replaced virtually all of the original townspeople with transformed animals. All those who stood in his way have been ruthlessly murdered. A nearby tribe of Grugash, wild elves, who members protested the disruption caused by his removing so many animals from the forest, were lured into a parley and massacred. The few survivors now stalk all humans with a burning vengeance. A wandering paladin who investigated rumors of trouble was murdered and buried in unsecrated ground. His unquiet spirit now roams the forest roads, seeking to achieve in death what he could not in life. Now Dyson is ready to place his agents throughout the region. Once he gets rid of the elves and the ghostly paladin, attacking them directly might cost him valuable cohorts, so he has been casting about for someone to do his dirty work for him. Entering the player characters. Adventuring Summary. The theme of The Standing Stone is misdirection. Initially, Dyson, his allies, and the transformed villagers portray themselves as victims and seek to use the PCs to destroy the only forces that are keeping them bottled up in this vicinity. The adventure begins as the PCs approach Ossington, the besieged village, and witness several villagers being attacked by a ghostly horseman. Once they reach Ossington, the locals plead for help from the murderous elves and evil rider. That they have seen the horsemen kill unarmed peasants with their own eyes should provide the PCs with first-hand evidence of the villagers' desperate plight. Any attempts they make to contact the elves are met with snipers' arrows. The elves have been fooled by one betrayal disguised as a parley and will not make that mistake again. While Dyson may initially be surprised by the PC's appearance, he's smart enough to know that someone was likely to come along sooner or later, and he has planned for this eventuality. He seeks to manipulate them into destroying the ghostly paladin and remaining elves. The best possible result from this point of view is that they arrive, remove his foes, and depart, having achieved their mission. If they seem likely to discover anything approaching the truth, his plan is to distract them with legends of the warlord's barrow, full of treasure guarded by a sinister undead gravewight. In his experience, the combination of treasure, undead, and a dungeon to explore should lure any adventurers away from investigation of what he doesn't want them to find. Should the PCs figure out the full extent of this deceit, he seeks to destroy them, though he flees, leaving his more expendable minions behind, rather than risk losing everything in a futile gesture of revenge. Note that this is quite possible that the adventurers will arrive, battle the elves, ghostly horsemen, and warlord, and then depart again with the villagers' gratitude and the warm glow of a job well done. It's also possible that the PCs may get wise to Dyson's schemes early on and ally themselves with a few surviving elves and the undead paladin for an all out attack on Dyson and the company. Either works equally well. Let events take their own course, directed by the path the PCs choose to follow. Character hooks. Each DM knows best how to intrigue his or her players in an adventure. The following are suggestions that the DM should feel free to modify in whatever way he seems best, playing upon themes most likely to interest his or her players and their characters. Passing through a small town on their travels, the PCs overhear two locals talking in the market about how it's odd that nobody from Ossington came to the fair this year. Questioning reveals that Ossington is an isolated farming village deep in the nearby forest. Usually, a few Ossington folk visit the town about once a month, but 2 or 3 months back they stopped showing up. Some of the townsfolk are curious about why all contact has ceased, but everyone is busy enough with their own affairs that no one has undertaken the 3-day trip to Ossington to find out. A local noble, Lord Caraway, has heard rumors of trouble and hires the PCs to quietly investigate. Worried by rumors of an elven pogrom, just like the Lendlore Isles, he needs to know if the elven kingdom on the other side of the forest has begun plans for a hostile campaign against the humans who live on this side of the forest, or is merely seizing the neutral territory that lies between. Haunting ballads have recently begun to circulate, retelling stories of events from the distant past. These ballads, the coming of Arsheldon, the Shais Nasmal, Sarthanar's last battle, Dide's farewell, the deeds of the Lady Dursnay, and others, allude to ancient events in great, if sometimes confusing, detail. Someone somewhere has either unearthed some long forgotten songs or else has discovered a source of information on a period of great deeds, now almost lost to history. And every bard, historian, antiquarian, and treasure seeker in the land would like to know who. The PCs are drawn to the area by rumors of lost magic, a sacred druid site whose exact location is forgotten, or a magical sword of great power last seen in the area. This might even include links to the Sunless Citadel or the Forge of Fury if the characters participated in these adventures. The megalithic monuments. These monuments are centuries old, made by the original human inhabitants of this land, long ago displaced on most of the continent by invaders from the west and south. Most believe that a curse protects these stones, striking down any who damage them. This curse is quite real and manifests itself by the damaged objects inflicting damage in turn to its assailant. Thus, if a character pulls down a standing stone, it falls on him for massive amounts of crushing damage, 10d6 or more. Even if he has taken pains to make it fall the other way, all monuments show signs of age and weathering, but any that have fallen or broken over the years were mended and raised back into position by first the Druids and later by the villagers, out of respect for tradition. The double circle. The most impressive of the monuments, these stones surround the town of Ossington. The 91 stones of the outer circle stands 30 feet high, and each stone weighs many tons. The 28 stones of the inner circle stands about 20 feet tall. The three trilithons in the center of the inner circle are each made of two 30-foot tall uprights with a lintel stone bridging the dozens or so feet between them. The stones are roughly shaped and inscribed with the create fox human spell in druidic script. The writing is magically protected so that only a druid can read it. It has an effective SR of 30 against comprehend languages or similar spells. What's more, the writing functions much like a permanent divine scroll of Create Fox Human, allowing the spell to be cast from the stones once per day. Of course, a druid of insufficient level to cast the spell must make a caster level check to activate the spell as noted in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Dyson, with Henwin's help, can access the spells, but he claims that he is only just beginning to unlock their secrets. The Chapel of Nine Gods. Dice is not sure whether this is a very primitive building or a very old barrow from which the overlaying earth has eroded away. He believes it was once sacred to an earth mother goddess named Biore, but was long ago adapted to the worship of whole neutral pantheon. If asked who he worships himself, he admits he's not much for religion, but pays his respect to Wios from time to time as a patroness of magic. The area within the ring ditch has been used as a local cemetery for hundreds of years. Local custom prescribes cremation very economical. We've used the same burial ground for centuries, and no worry about necromancers and all that lot mucking about with our bones after you're dead and gone. It is detailed in Scene 3. The Silence Keepers. These five tall, thin, weathered stones might have once been a dolmen, the uprights supporting a large, flat stone that now lies fallen in their midst. Or the local legend might be true that these were five evil sorcerers who slew the warlord with spells and treachery and were turned to stone by the druids. In this version, the central flat stone is where they perform the necessary sacrifices to invoke their dark magic. Whatever its origin, Dyson notes that it had long been a popular trysting spot for the locals until the present troubles started. Red Horse Hill. A large hill sits northwest of the town with a figure of an animal carved on its side. Dyson believes the red horse is actually an image of the dragon Ashaldon, who ravaged the area centuries before. He notes that the woods north of town are much less dense than elsewhere in the forest, being regrowth only a few centuries old. The Tarn. Dyson will not draw attention to the murky pool at the base of Red Horse Hill. If directly asked about it, he says that he thinks it's nothing more than a pit from which stone was taken to build the great barrow long since filled with rainwater and seepage. The Great Barrow. This structure was raised in memory of the warlord, a great warrior of long ago who fell in battle after two great victories. Dyson confides in the player characters that it's his personal belief that the horseman is none other than the warlord himself, returned from the grave after all these years. However, he admits to the possibility that the horseman is nothing more than a blackguard taking advantage of local superstitions to secure a safe lair, from which he rides forth at regular intervals to his foul work. Beginning the adventure. Assume that the player characters have made all suitable arrangements before plunging into the forest. Thus, they should have plenty of dried food with them, water skins they refresh from time to time as they come across streams and brooks, and the like. The road varies from about 10 to about 15 feet wide, allowing two medium sized creatures or their mounts to walk side by side with ease. Firewood from falling branches and dead logs is plentiful, and they can have a campfire alongside the road at night without creating a serious fire hazard. Note that several factors hinder vision or movement in the forest. The road they follow winds continually, allowing them to see only 3d4 times 10 feet ahead at any time. Overhead, the tree branches reach out over the road, meeting in the middle to form a thick canopy that blocks all direct sunlight except the occasional welcome sunbeam. The trees on either side grow thick and close together, blocking both movement and sunlight. Treat as thick undergrowth and poor visibility, reducing movement to one quarter normal. The dirt surface of the forest road is in poor shape, with deep ruts from generations of farm carts. Walking is no problem, but any character who moves any faster than that must make a balance check or ride check if mounted. A DC of 10 to avoid stumbling or falling. In addition, enough branches and brambles stick out into the path above head level to make riding uncomfortable and a bit dangerous. Add a +2 to the DC of any ride checks made while on the road. Since they already have been on the road for some time when the adventure opens, you should already have established such mundane information as marching order, night watches, and so forth. The day before the adventure begins, any character who makes a successful wilderness lore skill check, DC 15, notices a distant and unusual lack of animal sounds and sights. The characters have now entered the empty forest. Thank you for listening to this audio reading of The Standing Stone 3rd Edition, The Introduction. I hope you enjoyed and have a great day. Best regards, Reed.